Hello and welcome to the weekly MG EVs podcast, streaming live on Monday, the 1st of March 2021. And a happy St. David's Day to all our Welsh participants. We're here to talk about the MG ZS EV and the MG5 electric cars, hoping to inform and entertain you for about an hour or so. I'm Dave Stewart, Dave S on the forum, and joining me in this week's episode are MG EV owners Mike Fisher.
Hi, username FishToBean on the forum.
Mark Calvert from just outside Suffolk.
MC username on the forum.
Hi, Mark. And joining us, hopefully at some stage, will be John Griffiths from just outside Oslo, but I think there must be some gremlins. And joining us from North Yorkshire, the Innovations and Development Manager at the Charlie Group, Miles Roberts.
His name Miles Per Kilowatt Hour on the forum.
Thanks. Welcome, everybody. If you're watching live, thank you for joining us. Please click on the like button and say hello in the chat window. Mike will be looking at the chat window and keeping us updated with chat as we go along. I'm delighted to say in the last couple of podcasts, we've almost hit the ton. We were just short of 100 live participants. So thank you very much for joining us on a Monday night. If you're watching later, thank you for choosing to open this video, and please subscribe and get the notification before we go live next time. 2/3 of our viewers are not yet subscribed, so please click on that subscribe button now and allow all notifications. So the discussion topics we're hoping to cover today are the perennial, what's the nearest you've been to running out of charge? Have you actually run out of charge? And where were you and what happens next? Then we'll have a look at something that cropped up in one of the very early streams, which was MG drivers had a protocol of waving to one another. And just wondering if anybody has seen any MG EVs in the neighbourhood. Is there somebody about, and have you made conversation with them, waved to them, or whatever? And then we'll look at exciting breaking news. Last week's forum, there's a fair bit of traffic regarding best miles per kilowatt hour. So we're looking how to capture that and see who's achieving the best. So more details of that to follow later on this evening. So when we look at the topics, what's the nearest to running out? Day one, I picked up my car from South Shields, driving back home to Inverness, and had no clue just how the guessometer would work, and actually was really in a dire straits. I got to the stage where you actually got the 3 lines, no mileage left, just 3 lines. I've never run out. Has any of the other guys run out at all?
No, I've never run out actually. I mean, I've come close, probably like you, David, a couple of times. I've had sort of dash at the end, but I've always been lucky enough to be, at my destination, at my charge or whatever when that's been the case. Did a couple of long distance deliveries recently down to Essex from North Yorkshire to deliver MG5s, and fortunately managed to plan it just right so that I arrived with around 10% left. I think it was in Essex. To be fair, that was just me being, again, tight Yorkshireman, because I'd been to a rapid charger en route. It was an Ionity charger. It was 69 pence a kilowatt hour. So I put in just what I thought I needed to get to the destination, and with a little bit of spare. So yeah, I got there with like 10% left, which I was perfectly happy with, because I thought, I haven't run out. I also haven't overspent on expensive electricity, so that's just me, tight Yorkshireman as usual.
Yeah, Mark, any close shaves for you?
In the early days, it was only like three weeks ago. I had an experience where I was trying to get used to seeing what the range was like on the vehicle, and did a dry run going to work, and I managed to get home with about 6%. Of range left, but it was that really cold spell with the snow that we had. I was repeating the exercise again, and then just experienced, this was about 7 miles from home, experienced sudden loss in range. It dropped dramatically, and I went down to a range of, it just went to dots, and I could see I had about 3% left with about 7 miles left to go. So I decided that I wasn't going to push the vehicle anymore, because I didn't want to risk doing anything to it, like damaging it. I wasn't too sure whether running it that low would damage the battery or whatever, but I decided just to pull over at the nearest convenient place, which happened to be a garage that was closing. Then realizing that I hadn't got any details for breakdown cover or anything, but remembered that because I'd had to change, I'd had to update my insurance, so I still had the number and my call history on the phone, so I phoned them up and explained what had happened. And it was quite cold, and obviously I didn't want to run the vehicle to keep warm, and they initiated getting a local recovery company to come and get me, and they picked the vehicle up, put it on the back of a transporter, and took me the rest of my journey home. So it's quite embarrassing, but you live and learn, and I won't put myself in that position again. And we've discussed it on previous podcasts about learning to live with an electric vehicle, moving from an ICE vehicle, and you sort of have to understand the technology you're working with and plan your journeys in different ways. But I got caught out, and now I'm better for it. So I understand now that I need to make sure that I've got enough range and plan to have a backup plan if I end up running out of range for whatever reason. So making sure I know the route that I'm traveling, nearest places that I can go to charge up or stop. These are all things that I've learned from that experience. So
yeah. Mike, anything? Have you?
I've been fortunate. The only longest journey I did was to London, and pretty much I arrived there with 25%, and I did do a splash and dash charge midway, just as more convenience for myself and the car. I knew the car would get there with ample, but I just wanted to top it up with a few percent whilst I was unfilling myself. But the only other time I got it low was I came back from work with 15%, and then I had to quickly pop to Asda, but I come back and it was only 11%. So I've never got down to the dashes. The lowest I've seen on my guessometer is 11 miles. There's always range in my car.
Yeah. In whether it's arrogance or whatever, but in my defence, both times have been really close. I have actually been arrived at a charger thinking, "Oh, thank God, I've made it," and for only the charger not to work, and I found that really frustrating. The day one, picking up the car in South Shields, as I say, I got to Aviemore with about 20 miles range left, and I had 28 miles still to travel. And the charger in Aviemore didn't work, and the phone call between me and my wife was not for repeating. And luckily, I made it to Tomatin. Brand new charger there, worked perfectly, and gave me enough of a quick top up to get home. But that time and another time, the last leg of my North Coast 500, exactly the same thing, turned up at Helmsdale with only 20 plus miles to go. Range left, and again the charger didn't work, which gave me a real nightmare getting down into Dornoch. So really, I take on board what you say, Mark, about planning and things. It's so frustrating when you do plan and it's the charger that lets you down. But, so, Miles, what happens? Do we get a final warning before the 3 dashes go out, or it is disconcerting when the mileage goes and you just have the 3 lines?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously in the ZS, it warns you when there's about 22% left in the battery. That's when you forget the first low battery warning. Then you get another one at about 15, so it goes from orange to red. Battery warning at I think about 15% left. Now, at 25% remaining, it's usually got about sort of 35, 40 miles of range left. So it's warning you quite a while in advance. And the idea is it warns you a long time in advance so that you charge it up as quickly as possible, because one of the things about batteries and this is one of the things obviously we've been discussing over previous weeks, and we're going to talk about in a future podcast as well, is that the battery percentage is calculated based on effectively the worst cell in the battery. So it's a combination of all the voltages together, but each cell has got its voltage limits. And when the battery gets low, if those cells aren't perfectly balanced, if one of them is slightly lower voltage than the rest, that can actually stop the car working well in advance of when it would normally, or it can limit the power. So one of the things that you may see is that, for example, when you get down below 20%, you won't be able to accelerate to 100% power. You'll have reduced power on the motor, and it maybe limit you to 60% or less, depending how low the battery is. And that's basically because when you accelerate hard, when you put a lot of strain on the motor, when you put a high demand on the battery, the cell, if you're looking at the live readings where it shows the volts and the amps and RPM on the motor, you'll see that as you accelerate hard, the battery voltage might be at, say, 380 volts, and it'll suddenly drop down to 360, just because you're putting a large demand on the battery. And that effectively can mean that some of the cells can get to the point where their voltage drops too low for what their limits are. So that's why they limit the motor power when the battery gets low. And it's also why we don't recommend that you run the battery down to 0%. In the same way as, I suppose, think of it in the sort of petrol or diesel terms, you wouldn't want to run it till very low, because in a diesel you might suck air in through, if it was to get down to absolute dregs, or you might be, in an old Land Rover, you're pulling the dirt out of the bottom of the tank into the fuel lines. So it's that sort of idea, is that you don't really want to run an electric car down to 0%. It's not great for the battery. It's certainly not great for the engineers who've tried to design the car, because they're trying to make it so that the car will still operate at those low voltages while still giving you reasonable range, which is why they have to restrict the power. So that's why the car warns you plenty in advance. As I've said before, I came from having Nissan Leafs previously, and the Nissan Leaf used to warn you when you had 4 kilowatt hours of power remaining, and then again when you had 2 kilowatt hours of power remaining. And that meant that effectively you had a sort of like 12 miles, and then you had 6 miles range. So it was quite, short warning before you actually ran out. In the ZS EV, it warns when you've got about 40 miles left, which is good because it means you've got more chance. The idea is that at 40 miles, you go, right, I need to find a charger. You'd hopefully find one within about 20 miles. You'd go to that one, and if it doesn't work, then you've hopefully still got something in reserve to get to another one. But if you're trying to gauge it that you're going to arrive at a charger with 5% in or less, then it's a bit of a Russian roulette game in terms of, if the charger doesn't work, it's your own fault, really. You should have given yourself a bit more leeway. I know it's not always easy if you're in the middle of the Highlands and there's not anything else around. But like, for example,
relying on ecotricity.
Yeah, or relying on ecotricity. Yeah, no. I was driving down the A1 the other day, down to Essex, and I passed about sort of 20 rapid chargers, I think. All of the, sort of the Starbucks that have got the InstaVolt chargers now on the A1, and all the ecotricity ones at the motorway services. And I ended up at Peterborough services, and I think by Peterborough, I think I had about 23% left in the MG5. And I charged up to 50%, I think, and then drove to the customer's house. So I didn't do a full charge, I only did a bit, but the reason I'd planned to go to the Ionities was because I know that there's 6 of them rather than just one ecotricity charger. And I've used Ionity before, and they're A, quick, and B, reliable. So I thought, well, that's, if I'm going to hedge my bets, let's get there. But I also knew that I had 20-odd%, so that if that didn't work, I could have driven into Peterborough to an InstaVolt, or I could have driven further down, perhaps down towards Cambridge, and got, on a charger there. So I was leaving myself, sort of fairly bit of leeway. I wasn't leaving myself so much leeway getting to the customer's house. It's a good job the sat-nav works, or Android Auto works. But in terms of actually, doing the journey and doing the charge, that's my sort of plan, is that I don't really want to be charging when I'm down to 10%. I want to be charging when I've got sort of 25, 30%, or because you just don't know if there's going to be, I mean, on the A1, the day I was driving down, there was a tanker on its side on the opposite carriageway. Obviously, 3 lanes blocked. There was a diversion in place, which was about 20 miles further round. So, you don't want to be sort of, arriving at somewhere without a contingency. In the same way, when the fuel light comes on in a petrol car, you can keep driving and driving and driving until the needle's completely crooked over the end of the stop on the fuel gauge, or the light comes on and you go, right, okay, I'll fill it up then. It's just, it depends how do you feel lucky, Punk?
Yeah. And I saw one of the streams early on, they said something about an icon of a tortoise comes up or something. Is that truth?
Yeah, if you've got limited motor power, it comes up with a picture of a tortoise to show you that it's in like a limp mode. It's it's just trying to get you there. I've seen in extreme cases, I think when you get really low down, it does limit the power to about 20-30% of the motor, which is okay if you're doing sort of 30 miles an hour on a flat road. But if you're trying to do 70 up a hill, it's going to struggle. So,
but that's really for you just to get off the road and get somewhere safe, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, like I said, you've ignored warnings for the last 45 miles. So if you run out, you've kind of your own self to blame, David.
Yeah. I might see one or two folk are coming to my defence and they ran out of petrol in a petrol car. So that's. Is there any other folk commenting on being close to running out?
Yeah, Archie McKellar said he's run out of diesel a few times due to price anxiety. So yeah, I definitely don't blame him. Especially if there's an not ecotricity, Ionity charger, I would try and go for Intervolt instead. Just because I'm also cheap as well in terms of electricity.
Somebody ran out.
Also had his battery light come on, and he only had another 16 miles to go, so it wasn't an issue. Even though the wife was keeping on at him like a kid, saying, "Why aren't we there yet?"
There's not a button that reduces that noise, unfortunately. Yes, the day I was running short, I phoned home and was questioning my judgment in buying an electric car. And my wife tried to say, "Now, Dave, let's be rational about this." I do not want to be rational right now. It's quite, at the time I had a real scare at Helmsdale doing the North Coast 500. I had to take, there was a guy doing a barn conversion right beside the charger. And I said to him, "Listen, I don't suppose you've got a 3-pin plug anywhere nearby or socket I can plug in and get a granny charge?" He went, "Yeah, get one from the office in the report cabin office." So I went away and had a baked tatty, some lunch, and an hour later I had about another 6-7 miles, which was enough to get me to Dornoch. But when I speak to the guy, I went, "Oh, this is just unbearable. I can't make the journey I wanted to make." He went, "Oh, but if you're a petrol car, the nearest petrol's 30 miles north or 35 miles south. So you were just be in exactly the same boat," which did make me feel slightly better. But yeah, it is frustrating. And I'm taking on board everything you say, Miles. I will not allow myself to get that close. There's been a couple of times I've just been thinking, "Oh my God, I don't really want to see my wife pushing the car into the curb." Yeah.
No, I mean, as well with the, Ionity chargers, are more expensive, but I was getting like 62 kilowatts charge rate off it. I was there for about 15 minutes, if that. The charge that I added, I think it cost me about a tenner for the charge that I added, which I say it was all I needed for that journey. So, for a 240 mile journey, I only needed to stop once, and it cost me a tenner, which is, it's less than it would have been in a petrol or diesel car. Because I sort of filled up at home, which didn't cost me anywhere near that. So I thought, for the sake of that journey, why stress? Just pay 10 quid and stick it on my expenses and claim it back, I suppose.
And we're joined by our international man of mystery from just outside Oslo. John, welcome.
Finally, sorry, another Windows update that.
Oh no! Okay. Well, please update. Say
But that's why we're glad we don't have over-the-air updates with the MG.
Yeah, updates. Oh my God! Anything else coming in? We've just been talking about running out of charge during a journey, and what's the closest anybody's been. If you own up to running out completely, John, you're the only one on the panel who has.
No. I nearly did in a Tesla, but I think over a period of time you start to get used to how close you can get to the bottom. I did it once with a Tesla, got it down to 2%, and then I switched it off and turned. Sorry, the iPhone switched it off and turned it on again. It said 0, so that really gave me a shock.
Yeah, don't listen, Miles. But the second time when I almost ran out, by the time I got home and put it onto a charge, I worked out that I had only 5 miles left by the time I got home. So that's what, 3 or 4% maybe. Not too good. But it's scary. And I suppose if you're keeping your car serviced by MG, your AA warranty would, or AA free call out would come into action there, would it, Miles?
Yeah, there's usually a bit of a fair use policy on that though. So the first time that you call up and say you've run out, they'll come and fetch you. The second time that you run out and you call them, they'll come and get you and they'll say hello again. And the third time they'll say this is chargeable now because you're just using us as an alternative to paying Ionity prices. So it's so yeah, so you know, everyone has a miscalculation from now and again, but if you're doing it on a regular basis, you need to adjust your driving styles and or charging habits perhaps accordingly. So yeah, I think there's a fair use. I think it's 1 or 2 times you can call them out and there's no issue, but after that there's a charge for taking you to a nearest charger if you've not been able to. I mean, I say everyone gets broke. You know, we've had it before where we've turned up at chargers and somebody else is there charging already, and you think, oh right, well I'll go to the next one, and the next one's broken, and you think, oh crikey, that's my A and B plan gone. You know, that's perfectly reasonable to happen, I suppose. But I deliver cars all over the bloody country, and I've not, touch wood, I've not yet run out. I did come very, very close delivering a Nissan Leaf to Edinburgh once, and quite like you, David, it was a hill I couldn't quite get over, and it was reduced motor power, and I pulled into a little trucker's cafe on the side of the road and used a 3-pin plug for an hour, offered them some cash to allow me to charge, and just got enough charge so I could actually make it the 5 miles over the hill to the charger. But it was awful cold, wet weather, and I was going up Greenock on the M74.
Oh yeah.
And it was it's quite a steep uphill for quite a long way, and I just saw the range. I was going, you know, I sort of got to the bottom of the hill, and it's like, you know, it's, I don't know, 25 miles to the charger, and I had 35%. I was like, this is fine. I'm absolutely fine here. And then I was like 5 miles from the 10 miles from the charger, and I had 5% left. I go, and the hill just didn't stop. It just kept on incline kept going. I was like, oh yeah.
It's like you're going to run out of petrol in that. I'd run out of petrol in a fossil car, so you know it happens to everybody. But I don't know. I goes back to what we've talked about many times as well. It would be really nice if it was a percentage indicator, because you get to three stripes or 2 stripes, and what does it actually mean? But
one thing I will give the credit for on the MG though, the MG ZS, when it says it's got 20 miles left, it's fairly accurate. It can get you'd know you'd get 15. If it says it can do 20, you know you'd be able to do 15.
So you recommend, okay, so the GOM is worthwhile trusting when you get down to
the GOM's pretty accurate. Whereas I've seen obviously in other cars, like I said, the Nissan Leaf and so on, that guess can be very widely fluctuating depending on whether you're going up or downhill. The MG does seem fairly consistent on the you know, you'll drive a mile and it'll drop a mile on the guess. So I'd say that the guessometer, the GOM, should we say, is a lot more accurate, I think, on the MG ZS. So while they haven't got a percentage, you can sort of, like I said, until you get to the point where Dave was with dash, and then you go, oh, bum.
Well, I suppose if you've got a percentage, if the GOM is realistic, then that's an easier mathematical equation or calculation to work out. So if it is 20, it's 20. So
yeah, I mean, I drove an MG5 5 to Whitby the other day, and then drove back in an MG ZS EV. And on the way back past my house, I called him at my house, stuck it on charge for an hour, just to make sure I had enough to get to Chorley, which is where it was going to. It was showing on the Gesso meter, it was showing 40 miles, and it was 45 miles to Chorley. I thought, well, I'll call it my house and I'll stick it on charge there for an hour, have some lunch because I hadn't eaten a lunch that day, and then get on to Chorley, from there. And that was when I plugged in. So I've done 97 miles, I think it was, 95 miles from Whitby to Skipton. And when I plugged in, it said it had 22% left, I think. So I don't think I was doing too bad, to be fair. I'd been keeping up with traffic. I hadn't been, an complete eco warrior and sitting behind trucks. I've been driving, and so I thought that, and the range was it was on the cusp of, do you trust it? It says 45 miles. Do you think you can drive slightly more economically and make it 45 instead of 41? And I thought, it's not worth it for the sake of, I get to have a break for an hour anyway and have my lunch, and it makes sense to do that rather than risk it.
Well, maybe that's the thing to bear in mind is, don't think you'll get any more. So err on the side of okay, let's be pessimistic rather than optimistic.
Yeah.
But I certainly would. The car's on charge at the moment, waiting for my wife to go out tomorrow. As I said, if she hasn't got more than 120 kilometers on the clock, then I get my throat cut nearly. But,
have you got your car back now? Then?
No, still not. We've actually got this ID3, and it's unfortunate that she's not available tonight because a critique of the ID3 is not. It's colourful, to say the least.
Wow.
You see, we've seen one. There's one of our neighbours has got an ID3. I say neighbours, 2-3 streets away, and I've seen the car, but I haven't had a chat with them about it. It's their first electric car they've had, and I think it looks like it's got. Is it Nardo grey? So it's the one that looks like Primer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it looks like Battleship Grey.
Yeah, but my wife isn't taken with the looks on that. She says she thinks it looks like what was it she said? She said it looks like a Playmobil car. It looks like taking a Golf and you've just rounded off all the edges so there are not any sharp edges on it.
That's probably she's not really commented. I don't know whether this is going off the agenda that had been set up.
I went out the window ages ago.
Okay. But I think if I just sum it up, she says the seats are much better in the MG than in the ID3, far more comfortable. The quality of the plastics is really disappointing. I would say that the quality of the plastics in the trim in the MG are much better. There's a little bit of what you could call soft touch plastic in the middle of the dashboard, but you just don't get that feeling. For me, the interesting thing with the MG is it's more of a fossil type of car. So just to turn on and off the heating steering wheel that came on automatically, I know we haven't got that in the MG, you had to go into the lower menu to find the off button. So when you put it on, or you turn the car on, it automatically came on at 1. You could up it to 2 and 3, but you couldn't actually turn it off. So the simplicity of the controls that we have in the MG, they do the job. They turn the heat up. Okay, you don't have dual climate control, but they turn the heat up. You don't have to press a button where does it appear on the screen? So if you come back to the safety aspect of using the infotainment system to do everything with your fingers, just the idea, I want to turn the heater up, I want to put the switches on for the heaters, click, click, and they're on. So there is actually this business of more equals actually less. And there's like a little screen through the steering wheel, and on it is a warning message that Avis have put on that says, do not have the AC on at under 10 degrees Celsius. And what happened was, to try to turn that on and off in itself is not easy because you got to go into the infotainment system. Whereas in the MG, you click a button. And what happened was she had to park in a bus stop because the whole of the car misted up inside, just in a matter of like 30 seconds, boom, yeah? So for her, the complexity of the infotainment system, which she doesn't really need, plus the quality of the interior, the comfort of the seats, and it's actually quieter. That's my impression of remembering how it was the last time we drove it. The MG is actually, in our opinion, especially in hers, a really, really good car compared to something that is supposed to be 2021 high tech. Yeah.
And just before we go back to Mike for some of the updates, that's one thing I would like to reiterate. We do all love our MGs. There are things, and just by the nature of what we talk about, there's things that may irk us or things we can't understand. Like last week, I learned so much from last week's podcast. I didn't know that the heated seats came off the 12-volt battery, and I've been using that all week and smiling very happily with that. So, you know, if we do come over at times that we're picking on something or identifying something, it's out of love. It's because I noticed one or two of the streams last week, one chap actually just said he doesn't like the car and he's putting it back. And a lot of folk responded really strongly in, you know, how much they did like the car. Mike, what have we got on the board then?
Let's just try and find on topic ones first. David Price. Here, his wife's last car was a 24-hour Leaf, and he got it down to 2% a few times. You only find out from the charger display through the display. It's just -- what the percentage is. Scrolling up. Archie says LV insurance covers, gives a few free recoveries as well with their insurance if you run out the charge. And also LV insurance also covers the home charger from Keith. So if the charger breaks or there's an accident or so on, the car insurance sorts out, not the home insurance. Jake, he's got it down to 1% after his drive from Zappy or My Energy in Market Raisin. Only 4 days into owning his car. And I believe Jake helped get the BMS update to My Energy so that the Zappy could support time charging. So thank you, Jake, for that. Brian, this is more a message to John. Switch to Linux. You won't get software update issues. Scrolling up.
One or two kind folk have actually said that I'm not the only person who runs a car down that low. So if the AA guy is watching this, Miles, my name's Sean Cullen and I'll come from South Wales.
I suppose the only thing you could say is that if you did turn up with the lowest charge and the charger didn't work, I think that perhaps would be a slightly different situation to running it dry and stopping in a lay-by somewhere.
Yeah.
But I think that's perhaps the biggest advantage over here, that the number of charges just is increasing all the time, and I think that's the bad thing. I know you guys have got 20 million COVID vaccines, and we've got like 300,000 in Norway in the same period of time, but it's the reverse when it comes to the chargers. So I think if you've got more chargers and they're more reliable, then but certainly if you got stuck at a charger and you couldn't get to the next one, then I think that would be a valid reason to call the breakdown people in. Yeah.
But I will try not to do it, Miles, honest. So we'll on.
There's one comment which is just slightly off topic. Is it possible to lift the rear seats out of the MG5 like you can with the ZS, Miles?
Good question. I've not tried. To be fair, I've not tried taking the back seat out. I think you probably. I don't know if it slides out though. I think you might need tools, if you know what I mean. I don't think it's just a click and gone. Like in the ZS, you can pretty much just sort of like lean it forward and then just grab the squab and lift it, can't you? But on the MG5, I don't know. I haven't got my MG5 outside either to test because I've had to unfortunately take it back to the branch for service. Not a problem with my car. Somebody else has got a problem with their car and they nicked mine. So I'm currently in a petrol cash guy, which is horrendous. So So I mean, not if my employees watching know the Qashqai is a very excellent car and it would suit the vast majority of customers, and we have many people who are very excited about their cars and pleased to keep buying them, but not for me. I think it's a petrol auto. It's a CVT gearbox, which basically means that it can't ever find the right ratio. You put your foot on the accelerator to pull out of the thing, and it just spins the front wheels initially into like a complete hoodlum. And then it has lots and lots of torque initially, and then just gives up and doesn't really do anything after that. And then makes lots and lots of noise, doesn't really go anywhere. Rattles, the driver's seat squeaks like mad as well. So this is like a 6-7 month old car. So when people are finding issues with MGs, just bear in mind all new cars have issues, and if you have things like this, you take them. That's what your warranty's for. You take it back to work, to the garage. They will grease it, oil it, stop it rattling, stop it squeaking, whatever. That's what it's there for. I'll be glad to get my MG5 back. We have also just bought a MG ZS EV to replace my wife's electric Mercedes B-Class. She got that on Saturday. She's very happy with that because the range is about 2 to 3 times what she was getting in the Mercedes. Proven by the fact when we picked up the car and drove it back home, distance of about 30 miles, and then she went to the shops and she came back and she was about to go plug it into charge, and she looked down, she saw she had 100 miles of range left, and she was like, and my wife drives, my wife's Polish. I've never mentioned this before. So she drives with a binary foot. So we have acceleration, and we have hard braking, and very little sort of gradient in between. So she's not an eco driver, and she refuses to switch to eco, right, as well. She just keeps it in normal. I haven't shown her how to get in sport mode, thank God. But in terms of
maybe she should talk to my wife.
So she just she floors it everywhere and drives spiritedly. So she's a confident driver, and she's not in the house tonight, so I can say this and she can't hear me.
We can tell.
She's loving the MG. Obviously, she borrowed one of mine before, and she's tried it and she likes it, so that's why we got the MG ZS EV for her. So she's loving the heated seats, loving the sunroof yesterday when it was sunny, we have, John, I don't know if you've had sunshine yet. We've had sunshine yesterday. It's gone again today. It was all foggy today, but yesterday we had some sunshine. It was 10 degrees, which is practically tropical for North Yorkshire.
What colour did you get?
We've got red because it's obviously the best colour. I'm completely outnumbered here, aren't I? John,
Michael agreed with you on that, yeah.
Yeah, blue. David, what's colour's yours?
I'm white as well.
The free colour, you see, isn't it? Scottish, yeah.
That was cheaper on the lease, so my wife said whatever is the cheapest, we go for it. So white. Okay, so.
With your comment about binary foot controls, we should put out a big shout out for one of our regular podcasters, Mike Proctor, who has A, successfully moved house, but B, unfortunately had a really bad accident whilst moving house and has broken his leg quite significantly. So Mike, our very best wishes for a speedy recovery, and don't actually stop you coming onto a podcast other than the whimpers of agony, but we'll hopefully hear from you soon. So, but all our best wishes from everybody on the podcast, you Mike.
Yeah, best message.
The next topic is something like, I'm not coming into this very well. About a month after, by the way, I'm celebrating a birthday this week. Not only is my car 1 year old, but on Friday I went over 10,000 miles on the odometer. So it's a double birthday, 10K and a year old. You'd think I would know something about driving an electric car by now, but sadly not. So this happened to me genuinely. I hadn't seen an MG EV anywhere north of the Central Belt in Scotland. Then after owning the car for about 2 months, this red, it would have to be a red one, this red MG EV came towards me. He slowed down and I could see from the wheel trims that he was an EV. And we had this awkward moment where we looked at one another, smiled at one another, and then gave this hi. And then And I came back and I stuck it on a stream saying, am I stupid or should I have waved? Or is now somebody very scared about the white MG that's driving around Inverness? But I think it was Crispy Doc, who's a regular contributor, came back and said, some of the MG drivers used to have a protocol that they waved to one another. And now this is something I didn't know. Is this true? Is it a myth? Does anybody know about this?
I found that, I say, obviously, having come from various electric cars before, when the Leaf was fairly in its infancy, Leaf drivers used to wave to each other. And then, and you'd find that obviously Mini owners would wave to each other before EVs, and before they were bought out by BMW and became unable to use indicators. But no, it was used to, you just used to give it like a wave, and I still do sometimes from time to time if I see another electric car locally, not in a city or anything like that, but if I'm on like a country lane and so going over the tops from our house over to Lancashire, as the sky darkens and the world comes to an end. We wave and we say, I've seen this ENV 200 electric van coming the other way. So I'll, first time I waved to him and he waved to me. I was actually in the ENV 200 van as well. So we sort of, oh yeah, you're driving the same car as me, sort of thing. And that went on for a few weeks, and then I got changed into a different car through work, and I ended up driving. I'm going to say it was a Navara or something like that. It was totally not electric, and it was. But I saw the guy coming and go, I waved again, and he just scowled at me as if like, what are you waving at me for, you lunatic? You're driving a Navara. And so it was obviously, we'd built up a relationship, a rapport over 6 weeks, and it was just completely gone in one instant by me driving a diesel pickup. So in terms of MG owners waving to each other, the problem I've got, I think, is that at first glance, unless it's the blue, it's difficult perhaps at first glance to see whether they are electric or petrol. And let's face it, we don't want to wave at any petrol owners because they're weird. So we either go for a sort of wholesale waving at all MG owners regardless, or we stick with our Judean People's Front and just wave at the owners of the electric ones. We have to get quite close to realise whether the grill's blanked off or not, or if it's got fog lights.
It's a big thing over here with Alphas. I've had a couple of Alfa Romeos, and my wife, the first time she drove it and somebody waved at her, she wondered what the hell was going on. But it's quite a big deal. But obviously over in Norway, they're only selling at the moment they just started selling the bigger one with a plug-in. But maybe it's something we should advocate, that you should give everybody a wave and say, we're in the club together, guys and girls,
Yeah, I mean, you can with Leaf owners, it was easier because you're always the one wearing a hat and gloves in the car in winter. You wouldn't put the heater on because you were worried about running out. So
right, yeah.
Summer.
you gave a mittened wave,
Maybe we should just start it. But certainly Alpha was always nice to meet somebody on the road, and everybody did that, and it just gave you that feeling of togetherness and part of the same club,
Comrades.
See Dave Rains advising just an imperceptible nod. That's good, Dave.
Well, that's probably the way I might do it in Scotland. It's a little bit more, yes. Yeah.
How are you doing? And then I've had the first other white MG EV ZS in Inverness. I saw that the other day as well, and that was a wee sort of moment of chagrin. But Mark, what's your opinion? Are you waving or are you not waving?
Am I waving? Yeah, definitely acknowledging the other motorists on the road as well. I've just recently changed my number plate, and I had the opportunity to get rid of my my green flash on the number plate. I could have done that, but I decided no, I want to keep that green flash. I'm earning it, and I want other people to know I'm driving an electric car. So I kept it on, and that probably makes it easier to recognise other drivers. For that same thing, that we're in cars that look like other cars on the road, and you're not too sure till you get that close that you could tap on the other bloke's window. So anything to help you recognise it, so you don't inadvertently overcommit yourself to saying hello to somebody that's not in an electric car. Anything you can do to help identify that, the better.
Is there actually is there a north-south divide on this? Because obviously, Mark, you're living a lot further south than us.
But you know, I'm not a southerner. No.
No, but do people down there still acknowledge? Because I've been on the, I've been to London before, and people don't look at you. So what's how does it work down there? If you wave, do people look at you as if thinking he must be a northerner?
No, I can't say that there is that much of a difference, to be honest with you. You get people that are snotty everywhere you go. You get people that don't wave, and people that think you're mad. But you get some people that like it. It's friendly, isn't it? So I think.
So just to clarify, are we doing the? Or are we doing?
Yeah.
No, it's.
I think the sort of subtle. Yeah, that absolutely, Miles. I agree with that one.
Or maybe you could back this up. 2 out of 3 says that they don't do that in Norway. It's just not done.
But the difference over here is that we've got a separate set of number plates for the cars. You can see in the background we've got an EB, which means this Bil electric car. But we've gone from EL to EK to EB, and now we're into EC electric car. So it's much easier, of course, to see by the registration number as it's unique to zero emission vehicles. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm friendly. I'm going to keep waving to them. Mike, is there anything, anybody calling in my sanity into question? Or?
A few people saying we only wave to EV owners and not the petrol. What was it last week? For myself, I saw a white ZS EV coming towards me, and at first I was like, is that petrol? Is that petrol? And then, hang on, he's got the green flash on his license plate. Wave. And Ben was like, oh, no, I'm missing my turn to go home.
I'm going to miss the oncoming car as well.
Yeah, exactly. Crashing into him, that would have been a great thing. Oh, I was so busy noticing you're an EV customer. I crashed into you. Sorry.
Sparks would fly. Yeah, so
on the number plates on electric vehicles in the UK. Is it only for electric vehicles? Is it?
Pure electric, pure zero emission. So plug-in hybrids don't get it, but zero emission can have the green flash.
Okay.
And it's optional for previous owners to replate their cars with the green flash on, whilst it's up to the dealers whether they want to supply the car with the plate. If they
depends,
sell,
sometimes it'll depend how much stock they've got of old number plates that with us, we've bought, obviously when the new regulations came in, we bought a stack of the new green plates so that we can make them up ready to go. But some dealers, if they've only got perhaps a handful of electric cars that they sell a month, if they're still main businesses petrol and diesel, then they probably won't until they place an order, they're not specifically going to get a stack of minimum order of 100 green plates in. If they think it's going to last them a year, they might wait until they're doing a full order. But with us, because last quarter of 2020 we sold 84% MGs were electric at our dealership, so we get through those number plates quite quickly. So I had a chance to drive the HS plug-in today. Again, I delivered one to a customer over in Leeds, and reasonably good drive. I mean, the problem is when you put the heater on, it starts the engine. So you can't run it even if the battery's fully charged, you can't drive it on electricity. But if you're willing to do the old Leaf driver thing of turn the heating off, then you get about 35 miles out of the electric, which isn't too bad really. But I took the HS plug-in, and the part exchange that came back was a Mercedes SLK. Altogether quite a nice car. On the outside looks nice. Inside it was rattly, it was noisy, it was uncomfortable. The seats were similar to what you'd get, in a prison. They were like the plastic dining chairs you'd get in a prison that were not bolted to the floor. That's kind of what they felt like in the Merc. They were heated, and they had a thing that blew warm air in the back of your neck if you had the top down. But in terms of padding, there was none. It had all of the creature comforts of Alcatraz. In terms of the actual drive, though, really disappointed with the. I mean, it was a 2-litre petrol auto, which I think must have been a run-out engine because it wasn't. I think there was a 2.5 before that. But it was, yeah, noisy. Didn't seem massively powerful. So the outside looked all right, but the inside just felt like it was a 5-year-old car, a 65 plate. I think it was 5 years old. But inside the car, it felt like I was going back sort of 15 years. It was really old-fashioned. The sat-nav display was smaller than my phone, and the resolution of the Nokia 3310. There was a 5-disc CD changer apparently in the car. It was I say it's a 5-year-old Mercedes with 48,000 on the clock. It drove okay, and it's probably going to go on our stock, and I'd obviously encourage people to buy it. But in terms of the comparison between the HS and the woman got into the HS and she's like, oh, this is lovely. Again, it's a lockdown purchase. She's not actually had a chance to test drive it herself before she's taken the plunge online. And she said, oh, this is so much more comfortable than than the Mercedes. And this is, the Mercedes was a pride and joy up until about 5 minutes before I pulled onto the driveway. I think she's done a really good upgrade. Certainly the HS does not look out of place, compared to the Merc SLK that it replaced. So I think that that MG is doing well with its build quality. I think that when they have launched future models of the MG electric range, we'll see again another step up in interior quality and in terms of the features and things based on what the HS Fev is like. I'm looking forward to a fully electric version of the HS at some point.
I think if you had a fully electric version of the HS with 4-wheel drive, particularly, or you could choose between 4-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive, would be. I saw one the other day at the dealer when I went to see what was happening to my wife's car, and it's a nice looking car. It's a bigger, more rounded version of the ZS in my opinion.
Yeah, it feels internally in the driver's seat with the leather and everything and the center console, it feels very much like a newer Mercedes. It feels like a Merc GLC inside. The way that the sat nav sits on the dash and everything, and the shape of the center console and so on. It all feels quite premium. But no, it was a nice drive out today. But it was, I just wish it was fully electric. Really.
What does that retail for in the UK? What's the price difference between a fully spec'd executive ZS EV compared to the?
Well, you don't get the government grant on the plug-in hybrids.
Okay.
So at list price, before the grants, it's, I think for the top spec HS Fev, it's 32,995 versus 39,995 for the ZS exclusive. But then you get 3,000 off on the ZS exclusive from the plug-in car grant.
You're talking about a $5,000 difference.
So it's about a $5,000 differential at retail price, and then of course everyone gets a bit of discount off that as well. So yeah, there's probably about sort of $5,000 between the two.
Do you see any cannibalization of the sales now that that's been introduced, that people might look at the HS and say, okay?
Only if they need to tow something, because it's rated for towing 1,500 kilos, which obviously the ZS isn't. Right. So if you need towing, then yeah. But in terms of everything else, most people would choose the ZS if it's had the choice between the two. You probably go for the ZS because it's cheaper and because it does everything you need it to do, and the range isn't really an issue for most people.
I think the interesting thing is to look back at the way Hyundai and Kia approached the way that they have slowly upped and upped and up for each model that has come out. They've increased you can say the quality, the more soft feel, that sort of thing. So I see that perhaps MG is following a similar track in terms of its model development or product development, so to speak. Yeah,
definitely.
Mike, is there anything?
What sales end up with? We've just had the sales for this month for February, and Norway sold 226 or 230 ZS EVs. That's down quite a bit from December, but there's so many new cars coming on the market. A good example, at the weekend before the weekend, Ioniq, the new Hyundai, was launched, and they 3,000 were up for grabs, and it crashed the website. The people who entered their information and tried to get on again were told to get in on Thursday, I think, and they've still not heard whether they've been allocated a car. So, some of this perhaps is worthwhile thinking about for MG in the future. But I'd be interested to see how sales go in the UK over the next 3 to 4 months, and hopefully once lockdown is you guys start to open up again, to see how that affects the sales.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mike, anything on the board so you need to update us on?
On the chat, Dave Anderson asked, is the Queen upgrading? That was when there was the Queen photo up on the podcast on the side. I believe she is. Hopefully she's getting an MG as well, and she'll be waving to everyone driving an electric car. There we go. Thank you, Stuart, for putting it back on. The FEV will also start the petrol engine periodically to make sure the 12-volt battery is charged. So yeah, it's not really a vehicle that if there's something low, it will kick in the engine.
Yeah, and as well, if you have it in EV mode, but you go up a steep incline and you put your foot down and accelerate hard, it'll bring the engine in to give you a bit more power as well. It can do up to 75, 80 miles an hour on electric, but if you put it under load, it will start the engine to give you more power as well. It's a good car for a lot of people. It's certainly a very nice car in terms of plush fit and finish and everything like that. And for some people, doing 30 miles on electric would be all their daily driving needs, and certainly so for most of the year they'd be able to drive on electricity the majority of the time. But for me, I'm full EV now, so that's me.
I see Dave Rain has got a special wave he has for petrol drivers, but he doesn't deploy all his fingers.
Yeah. And also in the chat, there's a lot of get well messages to Mr. Proctor as well. So,
nice. Thanks everybody, and I hope Mike's listening in. But if not, we'll pass on your best wishes.
There's one message from Keith. Whether Miles can help. Mobility owners are complaining about the home charger that's being supplied. The BP ones not working or they're not doing time charge.
Pass. I've not had any reports to myself of that issue. Although my first instinct would be that it's BP Charge Master that needs to be called back out to it to fix any problems. One of the things with the chargers, whether they're supplied by Motability or whether you pay for them out your own pocket, they have 3 years parts and labour warranty when they've been installed. So if you have any issues with your home charger, I had this issue with my Anderson home charger. It wouldn't charge the Mercedes B250e, and it was some sort of software issue on it, but they came out and they changed the circuit board inside and suddenly that was fixed and it was working fine. So there are incompatibilities from time to time. I would have thought the BP charge was that one of my friends has got a ZS EV on Motability, had a BP Charge Master home charger installed, had zero issues with it whatsoever. So I wouldn't say there's any sort of endemic problem with them. But clearly, if you're having any issues, report it back to BP Charge Master. If that's not working, if you contact Motability, they usually lean on Charge Master for you, or speak to your dealer and see if they're able to offer any assistance in terms of speaking to local Charge Master rep or something. But it's not anything that we've had reported to us personally as a dealership.
I think if you've got that update that allows the car to be charged when not locked, I think that must solve a lot of the previous issues. I've never had a problem charging the car here on a time charging, getting it to kick in at 1 o'clock in the morning, for example. So I think the box may be faulty. I don't think it's probably the car, in my opinion.
No, I don't think so. But yeah, I'd just call Charge Master out and get them back out to look at it, because it's not something that normally, it's not a known issue. It's not a known fault. They don't all do that.
Cool. And the Northern Ireland government are considering letting EVs use bus lanes, which is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It depends if you've got an EV or not.
Yeah.
Depends if you're a bus driver, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is a very valid point, because we've had ability to, we've been able to drive in the bus lanes, and that was one of the biggest advantages of getting into Oslo in the morning from our neck of the woods. So you could drive in within 10 minutes where people were stuck in an 8, 9, 10 kilometer queue, yeah? And then what will happen is it'll slowly be eked away. So between 7 and 9, you have to have 2 people in the car, yeah? And now in Oslo, in the centre of Oslo, they're stopping it completely because the buses were complaining that there were too many electric cars in the bus lanes. But I think we go back in time, probably Northern Ireland is back where Norway was in 2013, 2014, with hardly any electric cars on the road. So certainly it's worthwhile doing. Again, it's an incentive. Why do you buy an electric car? You know, you need an incentive to buy it. And if you're going to get stuck in the traffic, buy an electric car and you can get into Belfast much faster in the morning, then, you know, so be it.
Okay.
It's out of Belfast as well.
Yeah. So just to move on to the last topic, which is just we'll mention. Last week there was a fair bit of traffic on the forum about who's getting the best miles per kilowatt hour. And there were photos of folk getting 4 point whatever. So we thought, and this is just a bit of fun, it's not going to be terms and conditions may apply out with Northern Ireland and Norway or whatever. And of course, Suffolk being so flat, you might be off to a flying start anyway, Mark. What we're going to look at is just putting up a fun competition based on a minimum of something like 200 miles over a space. We'll run it for about 8 to 10 weeks or whatever. If somebody who wants to play the silly game can take a photo of their accumulated total at 0, then run the car and show us how they've achieved 6.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which would be absolutely amazing. We will award a small prize. And thank you very much, Miles. You have stepped forward by offering up that which is appropriate as your handle is miles per kilowatt hour anyway. Would you like to say what you've donated for this?
Yeah, so for the MG ZS owners out there, I've got a set of MG ZS EV window shades. So for the rear windows, they just click in and gives you the effective tinted windows, but they are removable easily. So if you've got children, dogs, whatever in the back, you can put them in. Cuts out quite a bit of the sunlight and makes it more comfortable in summer. But obviously, if you've got a lease car, whatever, you don't want to get it tinted, then these are an ideal option. So what I'd like to see is that, you know, people are driving the car pretty much as they would normally. I don't want someone who's just going to set off from the top of Ben Nevis and drive downhill all the way and claim they've got, you know, a massive miles per kilowatt hour. Let's just do it, you know, run the car for your normal, reset the trip today or tomorrow, drive the car as you would normally, and let's look at the accumulated total trip and just see what you manage over a month or 2 months and see what, you know, how good you can get it. If you're currently, you know, down in the in the 2.8 or the 3.0 miles per kilowatt hour sort of figures, challenge yourself. See how you can improve this. The weather's getting warmer, so the heater shouldn't be sapping as much of your power. Try, you know, driving a little bit more light-footed. Try. I always say to people, the best way to drive an EV is imagine you're driving a 40-ton truck. If you can see the road up ahead is starting to get congested, ease off the accelerator now and slow up the traffic rather than stamp on the brakes when you get 10 feet away. If you're going to accelerate, again, accelerate in a 40-ton truck. Don't try and spin the wheels and use all your power straight away. Build the power up gently. If you're going down a hill, let gravity do its bit. You know, if you can see that there's a hill coming up ahead and you're going downhill and you can see an uphill coming, maybe gather a bit of speed downhill to then not have to accelerate quite as hard uphill. If you were cycling, you wouldn't necessarily, you know, coast. You wouldn't brake all the way down a hill and then pedal like mad to go up the other side. You'd sort of pedal with the gravity going down, and you'd carry some speed up the hill, so you didn't have to pedal as hard to get up the hill the other side. So now I don't profess to get the best miles per kilowatt hour out of any of these cars. I drive at the speed limit generally. I don't, maybe 10 miles an hour below. Very occasionally, I might go slightly, let's say 71, as a figure that's pulled out of thin air and not at all likely. If we, occasionally I do try to, get places, in an orderly time, but I certainly don't, drive ridiculously fast.
Oh, I'm embarrassed to say that's my accumulated total that's on show at the moment. So over 300 miles, getting 3 miles per kilowatt hour. But in my defence, I've just been doing short little journeys of late.
Yeah, exactly. And if you do, in winter particularly, if you're doing a lot of short journeys, a lot of the initial power usage will be you with the heaters on, trying to warm the interior up, and it'll, over your 5-10 mile journey, it just gets to temperature. Then you open the doors and let it all out again, and then you've got to heat it up again. So clearly, if you're doing like I drove down to Essex the other day, when I did that journey, I was, sticking at sort of 65 miles an hour on the A1, constant speed. Heating wasn't used very much after the first few miles because it was already warm in the cab. So it was just used for sort of demisting the interior, that sort of thing. And so I got, I think, 3.9 or 4 miles per kilowatt hour on the way down. Now, Mark, I think you've said you've been able to get much better than that, haven't you? Because you've full on, well, to be fair, you live in a flatter area as well, but you've been able to get, is it 5 miles per kilowatt, did you say?
No, I managed to get to between 3.9 and 4.6 on a journey up to, I went to Norwich and back. It's about 100-mile round trip, so
yeah,
it did really well.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, it's achievable if you do these, particularly if you do more sort of constant coasting sort of speeds, at say 50, 60 miles an hour is optimum really for that sort of thing. And if you do a lot of A-road driving rather than motorway, that will assist you, I think, as well, because you tend to obviously brake for corners and but when we, at the moment, obviously lockdown's on, we can't really do that many long journeys unless it's for business purposes like me delivering cars. Yeah, just see what you can do. It'd be good if we could have like let's see if we can get to who can get into the 4 miles per kilowatt club. And who could, I don't know if anyone's good enough to get into 5 miles per kilowatt club. Surely they can't sustain that for any sort of period of time. But if anyone is able to get that over, let's say over 100 miles.
Yeah. So we'll put a parameter on it, so like minimum journey or trip of 100 miles. And we'll keep it open for about 8-10 weeks. We'll get all the details posted up on the stream tomorrow. And as I say, it's just a bit of fun. Please, please, please. We don't want to be like the BBC and cancel prizes or whatever. But it's just a bit of fun. And it'll be interesting just to see who's getting what out of the car. So I'm going to have to bring this to a halt quite soon. Mike, just before we come to a halt, is there anything else on the chat that I've missed?
B-Strife, he's had the car for a week and he's getting 3.2 after 100 miles, which is pretty good in this weather. Brian is getting averaging out at 3.9 kilowatts per hour. So he'll probably be just going to go into the 4 mile club.
He's a contender.
Yes.
Are they? I wonder if they're driving in normal or eco.
Not quite sure. But also weather isn't helping. As McDon 2401 said, when he first got the car, he was only managing just under 2. But now it's getting warmer and he's now getting 3.5 unless he's running late. So, yeah.
Yeah, the weather being a bit warmer, then I think what we would do now is start driving in eco once we get the car back.
Brian's replied he's using eco, so that's why he's getting 3.9. He's making sure that his pedal is not straight binary. B-Strife said he was mixed, so eco, normal.
Interestingly enough, the ID3 defaults to eco.
Oh yeah,
And it's quite sharp. it's not as late, it's not as saggy feeling, I would say, with the MG version. So it's quite, I would equate eco on the ID3 to normal with the MG.
I see somebody saying that they reset the accumulated after every full charge so they can see how they're doing. I get so annoyed when I pull out the drive and I think, damn, I didn't reset my accumulated. Anyway, guys, it's the time is wearing on, so I think we'll have to bring this to a halt. It's been good fun. Can I just remind everybody that we've introduced a premium membership at just over £3 per month. Now, this gives you a premium member badge on the forum, the ability to upload a profile banner, the ability to select MG Red theme, which I have just selected this very day, and the supreme pleasure of knowing that you're supporting the website and the podcast, and we do appreciate that. We've been picking up any last items, Mike, on the...
It's just, in terms of this challenge, it's based over multiple journeys, not just one. You don't have to go out onto a 200-mile bender. You can do it little trips to the shop, any essential journeys if you have to. Just when you first reset the accumulation to 0, take a photograph, and then at the end, take a photograph, submit both of those photos, and see where you are.
Yeah. Great, yeah, so that would be quite harsh if we made it that it had to be one journey, but yeah.
One journey, 200 miles. No one would achieve that.
Driving around the car park for hours and hours and hours, just trying to get the mileage better.
Miles would win again. He's always on the road.
Well, yeah, but at the moment I'm not in an electric car, so you've got a head start on me, guys. Yeah, my wife's never going to get into the 4 mile per kilowatt club, to be fair. So
he'd have to present himself with his own prize then. So just a last shout out, any MG owners with either a few miles under your belt, enjoying driving your MG, or like myself or one or two other folk on the podcast, quite novice and quite inexperienced and non-techie. And if you'd like to share your experience on the podcast, please get in touch with us. We'd love to include you in. So that's it for the MG podcast for this week. My thanks go to Michael Fisher.
Good night, Saul.
John Grivis, our man of mystery from just outside Oslo.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Mark Calvert.
Good evening, everyone.
And again, from Charlie Group, our thanks go to Miles Roberts for all your input. Thanks, Miles.
thanks, guys.
And also thanks for the unseen Stuart Wright, who's feverishly working the background, ensuring that all this happens. So again, thanks very much, Stuart. We'll be back again next Monday on the 8th of March, usual time, 7:30. So we look forward to seeing you then. Cheers, everybody. Drive safely and keep safe.